I never thought I'd be the kind of father who stood in my kitchen at 7:30 on a Sunday night, deliberately packing my 11-year-old son's backpack with the cheapest, most worn-out charity shop hoodie I could find, knowing exactly how it was going to blow up in my face. But there I was, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to punch its way out, folding that faded gray thing that smelled faintly of the charity shop's musty racks, while my mind screamed at me that I was crossing some invisible line I could never uncross. Why was I doing this to my own kid? And what would happen if his mom finally lost it completely and dragged me back into court over something as stupid as a child's wardrobe? I didn't know it then, but that single hoodie was about to drag every buried resentment, every sleepless night, and every quiet fear I had about losing my son straight into the light. It all started back when the custody arrangement first settled into its rhythm. I have primary custody of Alex, 11 years old, sharp as a tack, with these big brown eyes that still look at me like I hung the moon, even after everything his mom and I put him through. Jen gets him every weekend, Friday after school until Sunday night. No child maintenance flows her way because I make enough to cover the big house, the groceries, the sports gear, and the nice clothes I make sure he has here. I've always believed that even if his mom and I couldn't make it work, Alex deserved to feel like a kid who had stability at least half the week. So I'd take him shopping every couple of months. Real brands, soft hoodies that didn't pill after one wash, jeans that actually fit his growing legs, a winter coat that was warm and stylish enough that he'd wear it with pride instead of hiding in the sleeves. I'd watch him light up when he tried them on, that little half smile he gets when he feels good about himself. And it made every overtime shift worth it. The handover routine was supposed to be simple. I'd pick Alex up from Jen's flat on Sunday evenings, the place that always smelled like cheap takeaway and the vanilla candle she burned to cover up the cigarette smoke she swore she'd quit. He'd come bouncing out in whatever she'd dressed him in that weekend, usually something faded, pilled, or a size too small. I'd hug him tight, feel the way his shoulders relaxed against me, like he'd been holding tension all weekend. Then we'd drive home in my car with the radio low and him chattering about whatever video game he'd been playing. Once we got inside, I'd peel those clothes off him, toss them straight into the washing machine with the good detergent I buy, the kind that actually gets stains out, and by Monday morning, they'd be clean, folded, and zipped neatly into his backpack for the next drop-off. It felt fair. It felt like we were co-parenting, even if the word made my stomach twist. At first, I didn't notice the pattern. A sock missing here, a t-shirt that never came back there. Alex would shrug and say, "Mom said she'd wash it." And I'd let it slide because I didn't want to turn every little thing into World War III. But then the wardrobe started looking bare. I'd open the drawer on a random Tuesday and realize half the good stuff was gone. The navy hoodie with the reinforced elbows he loved because it felt like armor when he was at school. The pair of trainers I'd saved up for that actually had tread. Gone. I'd stand there staring at the empty hanger, a cold knot forming in my gut, telling myself it was just forgetfulness. But deep down, I knew better. I could feel it in the way my jaw tightened every time I thought about calling her. One Sunday, I finally said something. I pulled up to her block of flats, the one with the cracked pavement and the flickering streetlight that always buzzed like angry bees, and Alex climbed into the car wearing this ratty old long-sleeve shirt that had a hole in the cuff. I hugged him, breathed in the faint scent of her flat still clinging to his hair, and then I asked, casual as I could, "Hey bud, where's the blue hoodie you wore last weekend?" He shrugged, eyes on the floor mat. Mom said she'd keep it for next time. My stomach dropped. I waited until he was buckled in, then I texted her right there in the car park. "Can you send back the blue hoodie and the jeans from last week? Thanks." The reply came fast, sharp. "They're his clothes. Stop being weird." Weird. That word lit a fuse I didn't even know I had. I drove home in silence, Alex quietly playing on his tablet in the passenger seat, while my mind raced through every receipt I'd kept, every tag I'd clipped off those clothes, every late night I'd spent working so I could give him things that made him feel normal. By the time we pulled into the drive, I was shaking. I waited until Alex was asleep that night, curled up in his bed with the nice duvet I'd bought, the one with the space theme he'd picked out, before I sat down at the kitchen table and typed out a longer message. Those clothes were bought with my money. Please send them back or I'll have to involve our solicitors. I hit send and immediately regretted the tone, but I couldn't take it back. The silence from her end lasted 2 days. Then the bomb dropped. My phone lit up with a call from my solicitor. Expensive, calm-voiced, the guy I had hoped I'd never need again after the divorce. Jen had gone straight to her solicitor, claiming the clothes were gifts or community property or some nonsense, that I had no right to demand them back. I sat there on the edge of my bed at midnight, phone pressed to my ear, listening to him explain the paperwork we'd have to file, the court date we'd need, the ridiculous amount of money this was going to cost just to prove I'd bought my own son a damn hoodie. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and was pulling it tighter with every breath. I thought about Alex's face when he realized his favorite coat was missing. I thought about the holidays she posted about on social media. Beach trips, weekend getaways, while I was skipping my own nights out so I could afford braces for him next year. And I felt something ugly twist inside me. Something that tasted like betrayal and rage and pure exhaustion all at once. The court thing dragged on for weeks. I pulled out every receipt, every credit card statement, every photo of Alex wearing the clothes with the tag still on. I sat in the solicitor's office one rainy afternoon, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of stale coffee in the air, while we laid everything out like evidence in a crime scene. Jen's solicitor pushed back hard, accusing me of being controlling, of trying to punish her for the divorce, of using money as a weapon. I wanted to laugh, but it came out more like a choke. Me punishing her? I was the one who had primary custody because her lifestyle wasn't stable enough for full-time. I was the one making sure Alex had dinner every night and homework done and a roof that didn't leak. But I kept my mouth shut because the last thing I needed was to look unstable in front of a judge. In the end, we won. The judge ordered her to return every single item. I remember the day the box showed up on my porch, beaten up cardboard, taped sloppily, like she'd thrown everything in there in a fit of anger. I opened it with Alex standing beside me, his small hand on my arm, and we sorted through it together. Some things were there, others not. The coat he'd worn everywhere was missing. A couple shirts had mysterious stains that smelled like bleach. One pair of trousers had a rip that definitely wasn't there before. Alex just looked at me with those quiet eyes and said, "It's okay, Dad. I like the new stuff you buy anyway." But I could see the flicker of confusion, the way his shoulders hunched a little like he was bracing for something. That moment broke something in me. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet snap, like a thread finally giving way after too much pulling. From then on, I changed the rules. When I dropped Alex off the next Friday, I made sure he was wearing the exact clothes he'd come home in the weekend before. The faded ones, the charity shop finds I'd started buying on purpose because I couldn't stomach losing another 100 pounds worth of brand new gear. I kissed the top of his head, told him I loved him, and watched him walk up the cracked pavement to her door. My hands shook on the steering wheel the whole drive home. I told myself it was justice. I told myself it was teaching her a lesson. But late that night, staring at the ceiling in the dark, I wondered if I was just becoming the bitter ex I swore I'd never be. Then the text came. Late Sunday, right after I'd picked him up again, this time in the same ratty hoodie and jeans that somehow looked even worse after a weekend at her place. My phone buzzed while I was making Alex's favorite spaghetti. "You're being cruel. He deserves better than looking like some kid from the streets. Just let me keep the nice clothes you send him in. You make way more than me anyway. Stop punishing me through our son." I read it twice, the words blurring a little as my blood pressure spiked. Cruel. The word landed like a slap. I thought about every time Alex had come home quiet because she'd rushed him out the door without a coat in the cold. I thought about the sports he wanted to play but couldn't because she refused to drive him to weekend trainings. I thought about the holidays she took, instead of buying him new socks that didn't have holes. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and before I could stop myself, I typed back, "If you want him in nice clothes, go buy some yourself. You have the money, you just choose not to spend it on him. Stop stealing from his wardrobe, and maybe we wouldn't be here." The argument exploded from there. She called me controlling, petty, a bad father. I called her out on the disappearing clothes, the damaged returns, the way she'd rather fight me than just replace what she took. Alex was in the other room doing homework, headphones on, oblivious for the moment, but I knew he'd feel the tension later. My sister came over that same week, brought takeaway, sat at my kitchen table while I ranted, the smell of greasy Chinese food mixing with the frustration pouring out of me. She listened, chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth, then set them down and looked at me with that big sister stare. "You're being petty, dude. Just buy him more clothes and let her keep the ones she likes. It's not worth the war." Her words hit harder than I expected. Was I being petty? Or was I finally standing up for my kid after years of letting things slide? The question gnawed at me all night, twisting in my chest like a live wire. I lay awake long after Alex had gone to bed. The house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Replaying every handover, every missing item, every time my son had shrugged like it was normal for his things to vanish. I thought about the coat incident, the one he wore everywhere, soft fleece lining, perfect for those chilly mornings. One Sunday, he came home without it. Jen had rushed him out the door, no coat, saying it was too much drama to look for it. I'd driven straight back over there the next day, but it was gone. Later, I learned some clothes ended up at her family's house, others got sold online. A few came back with rips and mystery stains, like they'd been punished for belonging to me. Alex had told me, voice small but honest, "When it's time to come home, the only clothes left are the crappy ones. The good ones just vanish." He didn't seem to care much about the clothes themselves. He's 11, more into video games and building Lego cities than fashion. But I cared. I cared that his mom would rather fight me than make sure he felt taken care of on her time. I cared that I was the one left explaining why things kept disappearing. That's where we are now. I'm still dressing him in the charity shop stuff or the cheap basics I don't mind losing. Because every time I send him over in something nice, it's like handing her another victory. My solicitor says we're building a stronger case for full custody anyway. Her refusal to drive him to activities, the instability, the way she prioritizes everything except consistent parenting. Alex just wants peace. He told me straight up he won't wear the ratty stuff to school. But since I get him back Sunday night and Jen drops him off early Monday, it works out. No friends on weekends because she won't drive him anywhere. It's all connected, all part of the same broken system we're stuck in. It's all connected, all part of the same broken system we're stuck in. But the weight of it all sits on my chest every single time I zip up that backpack now. Last weekend was the worst one yet. I'd found this decent, but obviously secondhand, black zip-up at the charity shop for $5. Nothing special, a little pilled on the sleeves, the fabric already starting to thin at the elbows, but warm enough for the chilly nights we'd been having. Alex didn't complain when I had him put it on Friday morning before the drop-off. He just gave me that small, understanding nod, the one that makes me feel both proud and heartbroken at the same time, because no 11-year-old should have to be that mature about his parents' mess. I hugged him extra tight in the car, breathing in the clean laundry smell of his hair, and told him I'd see him Sunday like always. Then I watched him walk up those cracked steps to Jen's flat, the door closing behind him with that familiar hollow thud that always left me feeling like I'd just handed over something precious. Sunday evening when I pulled up, the jacket was gone. Again. He came out of the building in just a thin, long-sleeve shirt, arms wrapped around himself, even though the evening air had that sharp autumn bite to it. I could see goosebumps rising on his forearms under the flickering streetlight. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles went white. "Where's the black zip-up, buddy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as he climbed into the car and buckled in. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes, staring down at the floor mat instead.
Mom said it got dirty, so she put it in the wash. She'll send it next time.
The lie hung heavy in the car between us, thick as the cold air still clinging to his clothes. We both knew it probably wasn't coming back. I cranked the heater up high, blasting the vents toward his side, and watched from the corner of my eye as he slowly relaxed into the warmth. But inside my head, it was a storm. Rage and guilt swirling together until I couldn't tell which was which. The drive home was quieter than usual. Just the low hum of the radio playing some old song neither of us was really listening to. I kept glancing over at him, seeing the way his small shoulders hunched like he was bracing for the questions I wanted to ask. When we finally pulled into the drive, I killed the engine and sat there for a second, the engine ticking as it cooled. I turned to him and said gently, "Hey Alex, does this happen a lot? The clothes disappearing like that?" He poked at the seatbelt buckle for a long moment before answering, his voice so small it nearly broke me. "Sometimes. I liked that nice coat you got me last year. It was warm and didn't itch. But I don't want to make you and Mum fight more." His words landed like a punch to the gut. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat feeling like it was made of gravel. Here was my son, caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace between two adults who couldn't figure out how to act like grown-ups. I reached across the console and pulled him into a hug, feeling his little body melt against mine, his head tucked under my chin the way it had since he was tiny. "I'm sorry, kiddo," I whispered into his hair. "I'm just trying to make sure things are fair." But even as I said it, the doubt crept in. Was it fair? To him? Later that night, after he'd showered and was sitting at the kitchen table eating the leftover pasta I'd warmed up, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce filling the room like some attempt at normalcy, I sat across from him with my own plate. The overhead light cast long shadows across his face. He looked so much like me at that age it hurt sometimes. The same serious eyes, the same way he'd furrow his brow when something was weighing on him. My phone buzzed on the counter, and I knew before I even looked that it was her. Another text from Jen. "This is ridiculous. You're making our son look poor on purpose. People are going to think I can't take care of him. If you make this much more money than me, the least you can do is share the nice clothes." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Share the nice clothes. Like I hadn't been the one buying everything for years, while she spent her money on beach trips and girls' nights, and whatever made her feel like she was still living the life she wanted before Alex came along. The anger rose hot and fast in my throat, but I set the phone down without replying. I didn't want Alex to see me spiraling. That evening, I called my sister again. The conversation started the same way they always do lately. Me venting into the phone while I paced the living room, the carpet soft under my socks, the house quiet except for the occasional creak of the floorboards. "Look," she said finally, her voice soft but firm through the speaker. "I get why you're mad. She shouldn't be taking his stuff. But at the end of the day, Alex is the one who's going to feel the effects of this war you two are in. Is dressing him in charity shop clothes really the hill you want to die on? Just buy extras. Let her have some of the nicer things. Keep the peace for your son's sake." Her words echoed in my head long after we hung up. Keep the peace. As if peace had ever been an option with Jen. As if giving in now wouldn't just teach her that she could keep pushing until she got everything she wanted. I stood at the window later that night, looking out at the dark street, the neighborhood quiet except for the occasional car passing by with its headlights cutting through the trees. The reflection staring back at me looked tired. Dark circles under my eyes, shoulders slumped under the weight of single parenthood and this endless battle. I thought about how some of the missing clothes had ended up at her sister's house, or listed online with the tags I'd carefully clipped off myself. Others came back weeks later, looking like they'd been through a war. Zippers broken, fabric pilled beyond recognition, one shirt even smelling faintly of cigarette smoke, even though Jen swore she'd quit. Each missing item felt like another little piece of the life I was trying to build for him being chipped away. And the sports thing? That cut even deeper. Alex had begged to join the weekend football league, eyes lighting up every time we drove past the pitches. But Jen refused to drive him to trainings or matches. "I'm not a chauffeur," she texted once. So he quit. Another thing taken from him because she couldn't be bothered. I thought back to our marriage sometimes, in those quiet moments, the memories rising up uninvited like ghosts in the empty house. Jen and I had been so different from the start. She was spontaneous, always chasing the next fun thing, holidays, nights out, new experiences that made her feel alive. I was the planner, the one who made sure the bills got paid and there was money in savings for emergencies and braces and university funds. When Alex came along, those differences turned into fault lines that cracked wider every year. She wanted to travel with him when he was still a baby. I wanted him in a stable routine, with clean clothes and consistent meals. The fights got louder, the silences colder. Until one day, we both realized we were doing more damage staying together than we would apart. The divorce was supposed to be the clean break, the chance for both of us to be better parents separately. Instead, it felt like we'd dragged every old resentment right into this new arrangement, turning handovers into minefields and wardrobes into battlegrounds. My solicitor keeps telling me these incidents help paint a clearer picture for the full custody case we're slowly building. Every text, every missing coat, every refusal to drive him to the things he loves, they're all bricks in the wall that might finally give me full time with Alex and end this back and forth madness. But at what cost to his childhood? I lie awake some nights, listening to the quiet house, imagining what life could be like without the Sunday night dread, without wondering if my son is being used as a pawn. And then I think about Alex's face when he talks about his mom, the way his eyes still soften with love even after everything, and it makes the whole thing feel impossible. Like I'm walking a tightrope over an endless drop, trying not to look down. The question keeps circling in my mind like a vulture. Am I the arsehole here? Am I letting my resentment toward Jen blind me to what's best for Alex? Or am I finally setting a boundary that should have been set years ago? Every time I pack that backpack with the cheap stuff, my heart twists a little more. Because no matter how justified I feel in the moment, there's a small voice in the back of my head whispering that maybe, just maybe, I'm making my son pay for the mistakes his parents made. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of quiet determination and growing exhaustion. I kept the new rule in place: no more sending the good clothes over. Every Friday morning, I'd stand in Alex's room, the morning light slanting through the blinds and painting stripes across the carpet, and deliberately choose the plainest, cheapest options from the growing pile of charity shop finds I'd started stockpiling like some kind of quiet protest. A gray t-shirt with a faded logo that had seen better days. Jeans with knees already starting to wear thin. Trainers that were clean, but obviously not name brand. Alex would watch me from his bed, still in his pajamas, legs swinging over the edge, and sometimes he'd say nothing at all. Other times, he'd offer a soft, "It's okay, Dad," like he was the parent comforting me. Those moments killed me the most. I'd ruffle his hair, force a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes, and tell him I loved him more than anything. But inside, my stomach was a knot of guilt and anger twisted so tight I could barely breathe. Drop-offs became these tense little rituals. I'd pull up to Jen's flat, the engine idling low while Alex gathered his backpack. I'd watch her silhouette in the doorway sometimes, arms crossed, that familiar posture of impatience that used to drive me crazy during our marriage. She never came out to the car anymore, just waited for him to walk up like the handover was beneath her. One particular Friday, the wind was whipping laves across the car park, and Alex was wearing this threadbare blue sweatshirt I'd picked up for £3. As he climbed out, I caught Jen's eyes narrowing from the doorway. Even from a distance, I could see the disapproval etched across her face. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. I wanted to roll down the window and shout, "If you don't like it, buy him something better yourself." But I didn't. I just waved at Alex, blew him a kiss like always, and drove away with my hands shaking on the wheel and my heart pounding in my ears. Sunday nights, when I picked him up, became the real test. He'd come out wearing whatever she'd sent him back in, usually the same cheap stuff I dropped him off in, sometimes with new mystery stains or a fresh rip that hadn't been there before. One time the sweatshirt came back with what looked like bleach spots on the sleeve. The fabric weakened and frayed, like someone had taken their frustration out on it. I didn't say anything in front of Alex. I just hugged him tight, felt the chill still clinging to his skin from the thin layers, and drove us home in silence while the heater blasted. Later, when he was asleep, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold, staring at the damaged clothes like they were evidence in a trial. Some items never returned at all. The nice winter coat he'd loved, the one with the soft lining and the hood that actually kept the rain out, disappeared for good after one weekend. When I asked Jen about it through text, her reply was short and sharp. He left it here. It's not my job to chase after his things. Left it. Like an 11-year-old was responsible for keeping track in a house that wasn't his full-time home. I started documenting everything. Not in some obsessive way, at least that's what I told myself, but methodically, like the responsible parent I was trying to be. Photos of the clothes before drop-off, notes on my phone about what came back damaged or missing, screenshots of every hostile text. My solicitor said it was smart, that it built the narrative we needed for the full custody push. But every time I opened that folder on my phone, a wave of sadness washed over me. This was my son's childhood being reduced to evidence. Instead of memories of weekend fun with his mom, we were collecting proof of petty battles over hoodies and jeans. I'd lie in bed at night, the room dark except for the blue glow of my screen, scrolling through the timeline of disappearing clothes, and wonder how we'd gotten here. How two people who once loved each other enough to create this amazing kid could now be fighting over fabric like it was the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. Alex, for his part, tried to stay above it. He's always been that way, quietly resilient, the kind of kid who observes more than he speaks. One Wednesday evening, we were at the shopping center, the bright lights and chatter of weekend shoppers swirling around us as I tried to rebuild his wardrobe with more of the cheap stuff I didn't mind losing. He picked out a plain pack of socks and a couple of t-shirts, then looked up at me with those big brown eyes and asked, "Dad, why does Mom get mad about the clothes?" I knelt down right there in the aisle, the smell of new fabric and pretzels from the food court mixing in the air, and tried to explain it without throwing her under the bus too hard. Sometimes grown-ups argue about money and fairness, buddy, but none of it is your fault. I just want you to have what you need here at home. He nodded slowly, like he was processing adult nonsense the best he could, then added, "I don't care what I wear at Mom's. I just like coming home to you." His words wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket and a knife at the same time. I pulled him into a hug right there between the racks, blinking back the sting in my eyes, feeling the small weight of him against me, and promising myself I'd fix this somehow. But the texts from Jen kept coming, each one sharper than the last. "You're humiliating him on purpose. He told me he feels embarrassed wearing that stuff." I knew that was a lie. Alex had never said anything like that to me, but it still landed. Another one. "If you're so rich, why not just let me keep the good clothes? It's not like you can't afford more." The entitlement in her words made my blood boil. Rich? I worked long hours, skipped holidays, drove the same car for 8 years so I could give Alex stability. She made decent money too. She had a steady job, no massive debts I knew of. But she chose weekend trips to the lake, new outfits for herself, dinners out with friends. I'd seen the social media posts, the smiling photos with captions about self-care and living her best life, while our son's wardrobe at her place stayed sparse. It felt like she wanted the perks of parenthood without the responsibility. And when I pushed back, I became the villain. My sister kept pressing me too, during our weekly calls or when she'd stop by with coffee on her way home from work. We'd sit on the back patio, the evening air cool against my skin, the distant sound of neighborhood kids playing echoing faintly. "You're turning this into a war, and Alex is the casualty," she'd say gently, stirring her drink with a straw. "Just buy him double of everything. Send the nice stuff over and stop caring if it disappears. Your peace of mind is worth more than a few hoodies." Part of me knew she had a point. The constant tension was draining me, making me short with Alex on tough days, keeping me up at night replaying arguments in my head. But another part, the wounded, exhausted part that had been fighting for years to keep things fair, refused to bend. Why should I reward her for stealing? Why should Alex's things vanish into her world while I footed the bill for replacements? It felt like giving up would mean admitting she could walk all over us forever. One particularly rough Sunday, the argument finally spilled over in front of Alex. I'd picked him up, and he was wearing the same thin shirt from Friday, now with a new chocolate stain down the front that looked suspiciously like it had been there for days. As we drove away, my phone started blowing up with texts from Jen. "You're being cruel and petty. Buy him decent clothes or I'll take you back to court for harassment." I read them at a red light, my vision narrowing with frustration. Without thinking, I dictated a voice note back, voice tight, words clipped. "Stop taking his clothes and selling them or giving them away. If you want him in nice things on your time, buy them yourself. I'm not your personal wardrobe supplier." I hit send before I could second guess it. The second the message whooshed away, regret hit me like a wave. Alex was sitting right there, earbuds in, but probably hearing every word through the car's speakers. He pulled one earbud out and looked at me with quiet concern. "Are you and Mum fighting again because of me?" His voice was so small, so full of worry that it cracked something inside me. I pulled over into a car park, the engine ticking softly, and turned to face him fully. "No, buddy, this isn't because of you. This is between me and your mum. I'm sorry you're stuck in the middle." We sat there for a long time, the streetlights flickering on around us, while I held his hand and tried to reassure him that everything would be okay. But deep down, I wasn't sure it would. That night, after tucking him in, his room warm and safe with the nightlight glowing softly, and his Lego creations lined up on the shelf, I sat alone in the living room with a beer I barely touched. The house felt too quiet, too empty without the buffer of normal co-parenting. I thought about all the little ways the clothes had become symbols of everything wrong between us. The nice coat that vanished. The trainers that came back with mud caked in like they'd been worn through rough terrain she never took him to. The shirts that showed up damaged, as if they'd been punished for existing. Some stayed at her place, some went to family, others got sold online for pocket money while she holidayed. It wasn't just fabric anymore, it was respect. It was responsibility. It was the quiet message that my efforts didn't matter, that I was supposed to keep providing while she kept taking. The question my sister asked kept echoing. Should I just give in? Should I fill his wardrobe with extras, send the good stuff over, and let her keep what she wants so the fighting stops? Part of me wanted to, for Alex's sake, for my own sanity, to stop feeling like the angry, bitter dad I swore I'd never become. But another part, the one that remembered every late night working extra shifts, every sacrifice so my son could have more than I did growing up, refused. If I gave in now, what would she take next? Time? Consistency? The stability I'd fought so hard to build? I still don't have the perfect answer. I'm still trying to figure out where the line is between standing up for what's right and protecting my son from the fallout. Every Sunday night when I pack that backpack, my hands hesitate a little longer. Every time Alex comes home in those cheap clothes, my heart twists with a mix of defiance and doubt. Because at the end of the day, this isn't really about hoodies or jeans. It's about whether I can keep fighting for the life I want for him without breaking the kid I love most in the world. The weight of that realization sat heavy on me as the weeks turned into months. The cheap clothes became our new normal, a silent protest that spoke louder than any court document. But the toll it was taking on all of us was starting to show in small, heartbreaking ways. Alex began to get quieter during the week, spending more time in his room building elaborate Lego cities, as if they were the only thing he could control. I'd catch him staring out the window some evenings, the golden light of the setting sun casting long shadows across his face, and wonder what was going through his young mind. Was he comparing the two houses? Was he starting to resent the constant tension? The thought made my chest ache with a pain that felt physical. One Thursday afternoon, I got a call from his school counselor while I was at work. The fluorescent lights in my office suddenly felt too bright, as she explained that Alex had seemed withdrawn lately in class. "He's not his usual self," she said gently. "Is everything okay at home?" I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white, the background hum of the office fading into a dull roar. I assured her we were working through some co-parenting challenges, but the conversation left me rattled for the rest of the day. That evening, when I picked him up from after-school care, I took him to our favorite burger place, the one with the red vinyl booths and the smell of grilled onions hanging in the air. Over milkshakes and chips, I asked him straight out, "Buddy, is something bothering you? You can tell me anything." He swirled his straw in the thick chocolate shake for a long time before answering. "I just wish Mum and you didn't fight so much about my stuff. It makes me feel like I'm causing the problems." His words hit me like a freight train. I reached across the table and took his small hand in mine, feeling the stickiness from the chips on his fingers. "You are not the problem, Alex. None of this is your fault. Your mum and I have some things we need to work out as adults." But even as I said it, the guilt gnawed at me deeper than ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room in the dark, the floorboards creaking under my feet, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, filtering through the blinds. I thought about all the times Jen and I had tried to make it work after the divorce, the therapy sessions, the mediation, the promises to put Alex first. Somewhere along the way, those promises had crumbled under the weight of resentment and old wounds. She accused me of being controlling with money. I accused her of being irresponsible and selfish. Now those accusations had crystallized into this ridiculous clothing battle that was stealing pieces of my son's peace of mind. The breaking point came 2 weekends later. I dropped Alex off on Friday in a plain black t-shirt and sweatpants from the charity shop. When I picked him up Sunday night, he came out without a jacket, again, shivering in the cold November air, his lips slightly blue. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. Defeat mixed with a quiet anger I hadn't seen before. As we drove home, he suddenly burst out, "Mum said you're being mean on purpose because you hate her. She said, if you really cared about me, you'd send the good clothes." The words hung in the car like smoke. My vision tunneled, the road blurring in front of me. I pulled over immediately, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned to him, seeing tears welling in his eyes that he was trying desperately to hold back. "Is that what you think, Alex?" I asked, my voice cracking. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know anymore. I just want it to stop." I held him in the car for what felt like hours, both of us crying in the dim light of the dashboard. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The rage I'd been carrying toward Jen cracked open, revealing the deep sadness underneath. This wasn't winning. This wasn't protecting my son. This was dragging him through the mud of our failed marriage, making him choose sides in a war he never asked for. When we finally got home, I made him hot cocoa, the sweet chocolate smell filling the kitchen as we sat together at the table. I told him I was going to try to make things better, that I loved him more than anything in this world, and that his happiness mattered more than being right in this fight. The next day, I called my sister again. This time, I didn't rant. I just laid it all out. The school call, the conversation in the car, the way Alex's shoulders had sagged under the weight of our drama. She listened quietly, then said softly, "You've been fighting so long to do the right thing that you forgot the right thing might look different now. Maybe it's time to buy him plenty of good clothes, send some over without attachment, and focus all your energy on that full custody case. The clothes aren't worth losing his trust or his peace." Her words finally landed. Not because she was right about everything, but because I could see the damage my principled stand was doing to the one person who mattered most. I sat down at my computer that night and ordered a whole new wardrobe for Alex. Nice, quality pieces that would make him feel good no matter which house he was in. I decided I'd send him in the good stuff from now on. Not out of weakness, but out of love. If Jen kept taking them, I'd document it and let the solicitors handle it as part of the bigger picture. But I refuse to let this petty battle define our lives any longer. I'm still working through the guilt and the anger. I'm still pushing for full custody because some things can't be compromised. But I've learned that sometimes the strongest thing a father can do isn't to fight harder. It's to choose his son's heart over his own pride. I'm still trying to process all of this. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more of my journey, make sure to subscribe.